Hey everyone, this is Mr. Laubach. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for tuning in. In this video, I want to quickly go over the Judicial Branch intro activity that we did. Now in class, we have already shared what our brainstorming research going online and finding out stuff about the federal court system. So we already did that. And then we mentioned a couple of the famous U.S. Supreme Court cases throughout history and what they were pertaining to. So now I would like to go over item by item the remaining portion of this assignment. So for items 3 through 7 on the worksheet, I put together this PowerPoint. So question 3, the U.S. has a dual court system, meaning there's a state level and a federal level of courts. Each level has its own jurisdiction, meaning the power to rule or make legal decisions. So first, state courts. Think Pennsylvania. Here we have a Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. We actually elect those justices on our state Supreme Court. They function out in Harrisburg. There's only one. There are state appeals courts as well. They are throughout the state. And then there are local courts. And the local courts at the state level, there is one in Narberth. I believe there's one on Montgomery Avenue. There's one in Rittenhouse on in Ardmore on Rittenhouse Avenue. And these are the local level courts. They handle minor cases. If you wanted to fight a traffic ticket or a small citation, that is where you would go. In Pennsylvania, our district courts are at the county seat. So in our case, Montgomery County, the courthouse is in Norristown. So if you were to get summons for jury duty at the state level, you would go out to Norristown. So that is the state court system. Every one of the 50 states have a court system. Now, the federal court system, of course, there is one, and at the top of the federal court system is the U.S. Supreme Court, which we'll talk about in a few moments. There is a federal circuit court of appeals. They are spread throughout the United States. And then there are federal district courts, which are also spread throughout the United States. There's just under 100 of them. The closest one to us is in Philadelphia. So if you were to get jury duty at the federal level, that would be down in Philadelphia. So again, here at the bottom, the U.S. Supreme Court takes precedence, meaning the U.S. Supreme Court overrides any state Supreme Court, again, only if the case is judged to concern federal or constitutional law. So that is the dual court system that we have here in the United States. In short, our states have court systems, and then there is one federal court system. All right, for number 4, there are 9 Supreme Court justices. Now, this number is not set in the Constitution. Congress can change the amount of Supreme Court justices. So here's a picture of the current justices. This is John Roberts, who is the Chief Justice. Down here is Amy Coney Barrett, who is the most recent appointed and approved Supreme Court justice. She replaced, of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who recently passed away. So as it stands right now, the court is considered to be a 6 conservative leaning to 3 liberal leaning ideology. Supreme Court justices are appointed for life, and of course they are appointed by the president, and they must be approved by the Senate. There are no official requirements for being a Supreme Court justice in the United States. You just need to be nominated by a president, and that nomination must then be approved by the Senate. Number 5, original and appellate jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is the ability of a court to hear a case for the first time. So most cases get heard once, and then whatever the ruling would be, that is it. So that's called original jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction, think appeal, is the ability of a court to review decisions of lower courts. So most cases that the courts hear, original jurisdiction happens, and then that is it, and then the case is over. But a case can be appealed, a point of law can be appealed, and a higher court may agree to review a lower court's decision. Now, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court and state Supreme Courts, they have both original jurisdiction on certain really important and big cases, but most of the time they handle cases through appellate jurisdiction. Number 6, the different types of cases, civil cases and criminal cases. Now, there are other types of cases, but these are the 2 main types of cases. So a criminal case is a case where a defendant is tried for allegedly committing a crime against a defined laws. So these are felonies, which are more serious, and misdemeanors, murder, robbery, larceny, burglary. Those would be some examples of some felonies or more serious crimes. Most crimes are state level crimes. Civil cases are cases involving a non-criminal matter, such as a contract dispute or if someone is suing someone. Question number 7, the final one on this worksheet, the 3 levels of the federal court system. So we'll start here at the bottom. First, you have district courts. Again, the closest one to us is in Philadelphia. This is the lowest court in the federal court system. There's a total of 94 of these spread throughout the United States and its territories. They only have original jurisdiction, no appellate jurisdiction, and it is called the workhorse of the federal court system because these 94 districts handle cases, they rule on them, and for the most part, that is it with the case. They handle both civil and criminal cases. So you could get federal jury duty. Again, these courts look very similar to what courts look like in Norristown and the ones we see on TV in TV shows like Law and Order. Now, the Court of Appeals is different. There are 12 regional circuits. They're called the Circuit Court of Appeals. They do not have original jurisdiction. They are only appellate jurisdiction. They are the intermediate level of the federal court system. They don't have juries. They don't call witnesses. They basically just hear appeals of lower courts. Now, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, is the highest court in the federal court system. Again, 9 justices. They meet in Washington, D.C. They have an appellate jurisdiction. They do something called writ of certiorari, where they can order a case that is in a lower court to be brought up and heard by the Supreme Court. They have limited original jurisdiction. They do, in some cases, have original jurisdiction. Great example of this would be in the Gore versus Bush in the 2000 presidential election, where they heard the case originally and ruled, of course, giving George W. Bush the presidency. So this is what the hierarchy of the federal court system looks like. Now, in Pennsylvania, our state court system looks very, very similar to this in terms of its organization. Now, a couple of final thoughts closing out this assignment. Federal courts can override state courts, so keep that in mind in the spirit of federalism and the supremacy clause. The federal court system can override state courts. Each state has a Supreme Court. Again, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court is out in Harrisburg. We should not confuse state Supreme Courts with the U.S. Supreme Court. Most cases are handled by state courts. So most of the crimes and civil cases are handled by the many, many state courts throughout the United States. Most cases are only heard once. So while we will talk about appeals, it is not something that happens very commonly. Most of the time, a court will rule on something and that will be it, original jurisdiction. So in summary, what do courts in the U.S. do? They settle disputes. So maybe a dispute between 2 people, between 2 companies, between a person and a company, between government entities. They will settle disputes. Again, this would be an example. Settling disputes is an example of civil cases. They determine if someone broke the law. So this might be state level or federal level. They will determine if a law or statute is broken. They also determine the constitutionality of a law or a government action. We will talk a lot about precedent, and a precedent is an early ruling that is regarded as an example or guide to be considered in subsequent similar rulings. So, for instance, Roe versus Wade set the precedent that abortion must be legal in all 50 states. So as we study the judicial branch, we will focus mostly on this function of the courts that determine the constitutionality of a law or a government action. So I hope this helps as an introduction to the judicial branch. If you have any questions, please let me know in class or via email. This video will be posted on Blackboard for you to check out again if you would like.